Hello, welcome in. This video will structure the Wings short film analysis using the member's name as the main heading and the key symbolic elements as subheadings, ensuring every detail is explicitly linked from the HYYH trauma to the Wings symbolism. 1. Begin, Jungkook. This film visualizes Jungkook's psychological transition from the HYYH collective to a separate individual, triggered by the trauma of his friends. HYYH, trauma, loneliness and codependence. The plot is driven by the immediate pain of his friends, proving his codependence. He hears the shattering glass, V's violence, and the roar of the burning piano, Yoongi's grief, during his nightmare, directly linking his suffering to theirs. The portrait on his sketchpad begins to bleed and deform, signifying the group's internal breakdown. Wings, symbolism. Awakening and the shadow. The symbolic conflict is his awakening to a separate identity. The film culminates in the blackbird merging with his shadow, confirming his acceptance of the Abraxas duality. This is the moment he embraces the dark, complex side of his personality, signaling the difficult start, begin, of his mature Wings journey. 2. Lie, Jimin. Jimin's film traps him in the mental aftermath of his HYYH trauma, centered on his self-harm and hospitalization. HYYH, trauma, mental trauma and self-harm. His setting, the sterile white padded room, is a direct reflection of his confinement and mental fragility following his trauma. He struggles to see his true self, viewing only broken reflections, which symbolize his fractured identity and internalizing the negative consequences of his past. Wings. Symbolism, deception and temptation. His conflict is deception, where he attempts to hide the truth of his mental state. The apple, the forbidden fruit of temptation, is a critical symbol, representing the temptation to regress into his self-destructive habits. His fragmented choreography and the visual distortion of the beautiful painting underscore his fragile reality, revealing the lie he is living. 3. Stigma, V. Taehyung. Stigma is the direct consequence of V's HYYH climax, the murder of his abusive father, forcing him to face judgment. HYYH trauma, family abuse and guilt. The police interrogation room is the literal setting for the aftermath of his crime, defining his immediate reality. His guilt manifests as a desperate longing for his lost innocence, symbolized by the puppy on the other side of a fence cage. The faint whistling, Yoongi's motif during the interrogation, suggests the interconnected nature of his crime and his friends' fates. Wing symbolism, atonement and duality. His symbolic conflict is atonement. He is seeking to bear the stigma of his actions. The film's ultimate meaning is found in his realization that he must embrace the Abraxas duality, good and evil, as his violent act was born from the pure intention of protecting his sister. He must accept the chaotic truth to gain his wings. 4. First Love, Suga Yoongi. Yoongi's film explores the haunting power of his HYYH grief and his failure to prevent Jungkook's accident. HYYH trauma, grief and self-destruction. He attempts to heal by retreating to his grand piano, his first love, and a symbol of his abandoned passion. This attempt at peace is violently shattered by the high-pitched whistle, Jungkook's motif, triggering his trauma and forcing him to abandon his recovery. Wings symbolism, relapse and helplessness. His conflict is relapse, as he is drawn back to the trauma site. He runs to the busy intersection, the scene of the accident, only to be blocked. The climax is the sound of shattering glass, followed by the visual of blood on asphalt. The trauma is no longer external, but a terrifying, recurring internal memory he cannot escape, cementing his helplessness and failure. 5. Reflection, Arm Namjoon. Reflection details the profound isolation and self-hatred Namjoon developed from his HYYH poverty and perceived failure to protect his friends. HYYH trauma, poverty and isolation, failure to help. He is trapped in the shipping container, symbolizing his economic limitations and isolation. His emotional state is represented by the shattered mirror he frantically tapes together, desperately trying to unify his fractured self. The unanswered phone in the booth is the core symbol of his failure, the call for help from his friends he couldn't reach, fueling his immense guilt. Wings symbolism, isolation, and integration. His conflict is isolation, which he attempts to overcome intellectually. He is seen trying to tattoo the Demian quote, reflecting his struggle to integrate the chaos of his life into a meaningful path. This visual represents his cognitive attempt to justify his circumstances as necessary for growth, although the final scene shows the isolation remains unbroken. 6. Mama, J-Hope. Mama depicts J-Hope's climactic battle for emotional liberation from his HYYH trauma of abandonment and his reliance on medication. HYYH trauma, abandonment and addiction. He is confined to the sterile pill room, symbolizing the institutionalization and chemical dependency that arose from his trauma. The presentation and subsequent rejection of the pills marks his definitive break from his past addiction. Wings, symbolism, liberation and maternal love. His conflict is liberation, achieved by rejecting the mechanisms that trapped him. Breaking through the walls and finding the Madonna and child painting is the final Wings resolution. This maternal image replaces the void left by his absent mother, signifying his emotional healing and the attainment of the maternal security necessary to fully embrace freedom. 7. Awake, Jin. Awake serves as the final tragic resolution to Jin's role as the time traveler and failed savior from the HYYH era. HYYH trauma, time traveler and guilt, failure to save. He carries the suitcase from the I Need You era, symbolizing the inescapable baggage of the past he constantly revisits. He observes the 6 dead flowers burning, which visually represents his repeated failure to save his 6 friends in the time loop. Wings. Symbolism, acceptance, and the observer. His conflict is acceptance. He realizes he cannot fly or act as a savior. The iconic scene is his kiss on the angel statue with broken wings, signifying his resignation from his divine mission and the acceptance of his human limits. He chooses instead to hold on to the fading Polaroid, accepting that his final role is to remember and preserve the memory of the most beautiful moment in life. This highly detailed, structured breakdown concludes the deep analysis of the HYYH and Wings short films.